Welcome everyone to our last session. By this time, no, everyone is familiar with this cover page already. So this time, I would like to begin with a review of our journey together so far, and then open the screen, I guess the floor, for any questions, clarifications, comments, or insights in the plenary. So no small group sharing today. So we have not had a chance, no, to hear questions or comments in the plenary. So I'd like to begin with that. So first, a little review. So we have met for 3 Saturdays already over a period of more than a month, no? It's the 20th of June now. We began on May 16. And for this more than a month now, we have been reflecting, practicing, and sharing on the four movements in a spirituality of the heart. Our main resource person is it's not me, but Bishop Eugene Jim Caskelli. So again, here's the text. Maybe by this time also you already know this by heart. When we say that we have learned to believe in the love of God manifested in Christ, and this is what we say, no, as members of the Chevalier family, we express the conviction that this love is able to give meaning and purpose to all human life. Not only to our lives, but we believe it can give meaning and purpose to all human life. That's why we want to share it with others. That it can answer the human being's deep questioning and quiet the restless human heart. This implies that we live what Bishop Coskelly calls a spirituality of the heart. And he also says with the human heart, this terminology suggests several elements. It suggests that our religion of the heart has become interiorized and habitual. And this means, no, A, B, C, D. A, the first movement, we have to go down to the depths of our own soul in a realization of our profound personal needs of life, of love, of meaning. And then movement 2, we must find through faith and reflection the answer to our questioning in the heart of Christ, meaning in the depths of his personality, where the human being's yearning and God's graciousness meet in redemptive incarnation. And then third movement, then fashioned by these forces, our own heart will be an understanding heart, open to, feeling for, and giving to our brothers and sisters in Christ. And finally, movement 4, we will not be disheartened or discouraged in the face of difficulties. We follow Christ, who loved with a human heart. As Vatican II reminds us, he shared our humanness, that we might know that over us all is the everlasting love of the Father. In God's good time, the omnipotent love of God will have its way. It is this love in which we have learned to believe. So that's the text that we have been studying. What have we done so far, no, in these last 4 weeks? Number 1, I have tried to give these 4 movements titles or keywords, no, so that they are easier to remember and understand. And the first movement I called the movement of awareness. The second movement, encounter. The third movement, formation. And the fourth, mission. No? So we gave them titles. So now they're easy to remember. Awareness, encounter, formation, mission. So aside from giving them titles, we also used a simple exercise to practice movements 1 and 2, the heart exercise. I hope still some people are doing it, if not all, and if not every day, no, once in a while. Identifying what occupies our heart space and trying to see how Jesus is present in our heart space, in our life. We do this as we beg for the grace of awareness and encounter, which bears the fruit of intimacy with Christ. So the challenge really for us is to practice this every day so that, to borrow Father Cascali's words, our religion of the heart becomes interiorized and habitual. So we gave them titles. We have a daily exercise that we said we will practice every day. No? And last week, we made an important point, and that is that our spirituality of the heart is lived in the context of community. It becomes concrete in our relationships, in how we relate with God, with others, with creation, with ourselves. So we made it very clear last week. The four movements is not just between me and Jesus. It is between us in relation with each other and Jesus. It is in our relationships that formation happens. Now, as it were, in community, in our encounters with each other, our hearts are fashioned to resemble the heart of Christ. You see, this is why last week we spent an hour, almost an hour, on the 2-round group sharing process. The sharing of our experiences, round 1, no? And the sharing of prayer, round 2. Why did I do that, no? In that practice, I hoped that you would learn, or at least have a taste, a try, at truly, honestly listening to others, to the point that you were able to really grasp what was happening to them, what they were really saying, verbally and non-verbally. And as a result, you were able to pray for them sincerely. And you were able to say a prayer that is very particular for each person because you listen. No? I am convinced that practicing this kind of listening in order to be able to really pray for each other will not only hone our ears, will not only free our tongues, but will actually form our hearts. Our hearts become more open and understanding. In other words, our hearts become more like the heart of Christ. That was last week. And then finally, so we gave them titles, we gave an exercise, no? We shared with each other to experience and really understand the value of relationships and community in the living of our spirituality of the heart. And finally, we also tried to phrase the four movements as reflection questions that we can ask daily. What am I carrying in my heart today? No? That's movement 1. How is Christ present in my life now? That's movement 2. What is changing in me, in my relationships? What changes am I being called to? That's movement 3. And finally, where or to whom is God sending me today? That's actually movement 4. So, brothers and sisters, that is what I tried to do, no? I tried to present the movements, the text of Father Jim Caskelly, and then tried to present it in different ways, through titles, through an exercise, no, through presentation and sharing. In this process, I was hoping, no, that this process will lead to better learning. No, I thought instead of just listening to me, this would be more effective. So that's the review, no? And at this point, I would like to open the floor and give you time and space to speak, no? And to share your experience of this shared journey. So this past more than a month now, how has it been for you so far? What's the experience like? Or maybe key learnings or insights, no? In doing the exercises, in attending the sessions, in sharing with others, what new insights came to me? Or maybe you have some questions or clarifications that you would like to voice out. No, I cannot promise to answer them, but it's always good to ask our questions. I wanted to give you a minute, no, just a minute to just put together your thoughts. So we will now proceed to the last or the fourth movement in our spirituality of the heart. Okay. So this is the text of the fourth movement from Bishop Caskelly. And I just divided it into parts. We will not be disheartened or discouraged in the face of difficulties. We follow Christ, who loved with a human heart, as Vatican II reminds us. He shared our humanness, that we might know that over us all is the everlasting love of the Father. In God's good time, the omnipotent love of God will have its way. It is this love in which we have learned to believe. No? So the title I give this fourth and last movement is Mission. I just want to go through each section with you. The first one, we will not be disheartened or discouraged in the face of difficulties. Bishop Caskelly was playing with the words there. Diba? You can see the word heart in disheartened, and you could see the word cor, heart, in the word discouraged. No? And what he's saying, no, is we will not lose heart. We would not want to give up. No? He does not say that living a spirituality of the heart means we will not have difficulties anymore. No. What he's saying, no, he is saying we will face difficulties. Difficulties that come with life, with being human. In fact, the gospel even promises that those who follow Christ, and that is us, no, we are trying to be disciples of Christ and leave everything and everyone, no? Mark 10:30 says, shall receive 100-fold. Now in this time, houses and brethren and sisters and mothers and children and lands with persecutions. Did you ever notice that? No? If you leave mother, father, you will be given 100-fold, mother, father, lands, and persecutions. With persecutions. The difficulties will not lessen. When we decide to follow Christ and practice a spirituality of the heart, the difficulties will not lessen, maybe even increase. But we will not be disheartened or discouraged. We will not lose heart. We will not give up. So this is actually a fruit of the third movement, like a transition from the third movement to the fourth movement. Not only will our hearts become understanding, open to our brothers and sisters, our hearts, like the heart of Christ, will also become strong hearts. Hearts capable of holding pain and suffering without breaking. Hearts that persevere. Hearts that continue in the journey no matter how difficult or challenging the journey may be. We will not be disheartened or discouraged in the face of difficulties. I remember Father Chevalier. For him, obstacles are means. Even as young sisters, this is one quote from Chevalier that we always were told. For Chevalier, obstacles are means. The first time I remember, I was an aspirant and I read Man with a Mission. After reading it from cover to cover, I remember putting down the book and thinking, Chevalier never learned how to give up. I think his mother did not teach him, this is how to give up. I thought giving up was literally not in his dictionary. He was never disheartened or discouraged by difficulties. In fact, difficulties strengthened his resolve. And to me, what is implied here is hope. When we were children, we had a motto, we were taught, you must try and try until you succeed. Were you taught that also? Try and try until you succeed. We were told in a seminar on the youth of the current generation, the speaker told us the youth of today are different. When they encounter difficulties, they abandon that and do something else. For them, trying and trying repeatedly is a waste of time. If a part in what they're watching is not interesting, they go to another channel, or they watch different channels at the same time. No, it's very different, and it's a challenge for us to teach this fourth movement. We will not be disheartened or discouraged in the face of difficulties. So the fourth movement begins by saying this: we will have strong and persevering hearts. Hope will be there. Huh? In hope, we are saved, no? In spe salvi. Now, the question is, where is our perseverance founded on? Where is our hope founded on? No? Of course, in the love of God. Later, in that fourth movement, Kaskeli writes, in God's good time, the omnipotent love of God will have its way. That's why we have hope. That's why we can face failures. That's why we can face difficulties, and we will continue because we believe this. The love of God is greater than the obstacles or the difficulties or the failure. In God's good time, the omnipotent love of God will have its way. Julian of Norwich says something similar, no? At the end, all shall be well. And now, because we believe deeply in the love of God, then we have the courage, we have the heart to go out of ourselves, to leave our comfort zones, to go to the peripheries, to places and people in most need of God's compassion. Because we believe deeply in the love of God, we have the heart to go on mission. And therefore, we follow Christ, who loved with a human heart, as Vatican II reminds us. No? So it's a phrase from Vatican II. He worked with human hands, he walked with human feet, he loved with a human heart. He shared our humanness, that we might know that over us all is the everlasting love of God. In God's good time, the love of God will prevail. And when we say we follow Christ, no, we understand following Christ in the sense of following his words, but also following his actions. No, so we follow Christ's commands. We follow his words. We follow what he says to us. And in the sharing a while ago, we said these past 5 weeks had made us more aware of what God is saying to us, what the Lord is saying to us. No? So we follow Christ, we follow what he is saying to us. At the same time, we follow Christ in his actions. We do what he does. We go where he goes. We love as he loves. And how does Jesus love? He loved with the human heart. Now, what does it mean that he loved with the human heart? What does it mean that he shared our humanness? And now I want to go back to a text again of our favorite resource person, Bishop Kaskeli. I don't know if you're aware, but he wrote a commentary on John 21, 15 to 19. This is the episode where after the resurrection, Jesus asked Peter, do you love me? 3 times. Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Okay. Now, Bishop Kaskeli, in this book, With the Human Heart, on pages, in the English, page 13 to 15, he gives us a beautiful commentary on this text. No? So I would like us to reflect on this text when the risen Christ and Peter have this breakfast together, no? In what I would call Peter's mission sending. I know we're all familiar with the text, no? So let me just read the text again to you. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than this? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my lambs. A second time, he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said to him, tend my sheep. He said to him the third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter felt hurt because he said to him the third time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. Very truly, I tell you, when you were younger, you used to fasten your own belt and go wherever you wished. But when you grow old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will fasten a belt around you and take you where you do not want to go. He said this to indicate the kind of death by which he would glorify God. After this, he said to him, follow me. So brothers and sisters, I found Father Caskelli's reading of this text, the text we just read, both enlightening and challenging. So please bear with me because I would like to present his commentary here in full. He says that this text teaches us what kind of love God asks of Peter. And this is the same kind of love that he also asks of each of us. So I'm going to read what Bishop Caskelli wrote. So he said, if we want to appreciate this lesson fully, we need to recall the type of man Peter was. So what kind of man was Peter? So Bishop Caskelli, remember, he was sure of himself, confident that he was loyal to the Lord. He believed so much in the strength of his own love that he assured his master. In John 13:37, Peter says to the Lord, I will lay down my life for you. His opinion of the other apostles was not so high. Peter had a tendency to look down on his companions. It would be no surprise to him if they betrayed the Lord. But Peter, he would be faithful. In Matthew 26 and Mark 14, we hear him say, though all lose faith in you, Lord, will never lose faith. He says to Jesus, even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you. A very self-confident Peter, so sure of himself. When his time came, Peter's failure was the worse than that of any of his companions. Many of them fled in fear, but we know the story. Deliberately and repeatedly 3 times, Peter denied his master, calling down curses on himself and swearing, I do not know the man you speak of. But our Lord is a forgiving God, no? Our God is a God of many chances. So, after his resurrection, Jesus wanted to be assured of Peter's love. Not a love that is proud and self-confident, but the love of a heart that is humble, purified through failure and regret. His first question to Peter was, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Referring to his companions, no? Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these others do? Peter remembers how he had looked down on his companions, judging them unworthy and capable of failure. But he also remembers his own failure. From his reply, Peter deliberately omits all reference to the others. He simply says, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He would no more consider himself superior to the others. He would confess his own weakness rather than judge others. This much he had learned from his failure. And this is the very interesting part, no? Running through the whole exchange, according to Bishop Caskeli, is a very instructive play on words which does not come through from the Greek into the English translations. The latter, no, English, use only one word for love. Love, no? In English, everything, you love your mother, you love coffee, you love to talk, no? For us Filipinos, that's a bit funny, no? Because we have a different word. You love your mother, mahal mo, mahal. But you love coffee, you never say mahal mo ang kape. You don't love it in the same way. So we use another word. Gusto ko ng kape. A person loving to talk, we also do not use the same word. You don't love to talk. You mahilig kang magsalita. You know, we have different words. In English, love, the word love can mean many things. You can love a cat, you can love a person, you can love to talk, you can love something, no? And Bishop Caskeli says in Greek, in this text, the Greek was using two words for what the English translates as love. Agapan and philein. So in the Septuagint, he says agapan has a technical meaning, indicating a consecration to God, which expresses itself in total fidelity and obedience. So agapan is a very strong word. Now, if I say, I agapan you, it means I am expressing total fidelity and obedience to you. And he says the other word, philein, is less strong, but it signifies a true and deep human attachment. So we lose this in English, but Bishop Caskeli says in the text, actually, it is these two words that are being used. Against the background of Peter's call, his confident declaration of love and his denial, this passage from St. John becomes very rich and humanly beautiful. So with all these things in both their minds, no, his confident declaration of love and his denial, Jesus says to Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And the word Jesus uses is agapas. In other words, Jesus was saying, Simon, do you love me with a strong and faithful love more than these others do? Peter will no longer compare himself with others, and Peter dare not assert that his love is strong and that it will be faithful. Therefore, when Peter answers, he uses a different word for love. He doesn't use agapan. He uses philo. Replying simply and humbly, yes, Lord, I philo you, no? You know that in my weak human heart, I have a deep affection for you. We lose that in English. Peter cannot use the word the Lord used. He can only use philo. I have a deep human affection for you. I know I have just failed. I know my heart is weak. Our Lord notes the omission of any reference to others. And the second time he asked, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And Jesus still uses agapan, agapas. Even on this second occasion, invited to it though he may be, Peter cannot bring himself to repeat the strong word suggested by Jesus. He simply repeats his philo. So when Peter says, yes, Lord, you know I love you, he was still using philo, reasserting his human affection for his Lord, and suggesting that only you know how strong and faithful my love will be, for only you, Lord, can give it strength. For Jesus, this is sufficient. In fact, for Jesus, it is necessary. For a love that is self-confident, sure of itself, is bound to fail. The only love that can endure is the love that, conscious of its human weakness, looks to God for strength. And therefore, in his third question, Jesus changes his word. He will not use agapan anymore. Jesus uses philes, asking Simon, son of John, do you really have in your heart this deep human affection for me? At this, Peter is upset. Could Jesus really call into doubt the depth of his human friendship? Though weak though it might be, it was deep and authentic. And so he replies, Lord, you know all things. You know that my friendship is real. Although without your help, it will remain a weak and human love. And Jesus is satisfied. He confirms Peter in his mission to care for the flock of Christ, reminding him that he must always remember that they are my sheep, those for whom he had died, and towards whom the shepherds must show the same tender compassion as Jesus, the Good Shepherd. End of that long quote. That's Bishop Casquel. Brothers and sisters in the Chevalier family, Jesus, who loves us very much, accepts our imperfect love. And he is asking us, do you love me with your weak human heart? His question also comes with a command, a mission. Feed my sheep. It is this love in which we have learned to believe. It is this love that we have experienced, the love we are living and sharing with all. This is the love of the heart of Christ when we say, may the Sacred Heart of Jesus be everywhere loved. And this is the fourth movement. So I'd like to end with this slide. I call it the dynamic of the four movements. In reality, we would have noticed that the distinction between the four movements is not clear and solid. You would have noticed as you practiced, let's say, movement 1, not going down to the depths of your soul, you found Jesus there, sending you to a person to console. And in the act of going to the other person, no, and doing what Jesus asks you to do, your heart became more like his heart. The four movements, awareness, encounter, formation, mission, all happening in one single experience. They are also like a cycle. No? As we follow Jesus on mission, we constantly have to check what we are carrying in our hearts. We constantly have to be aware how Christ is present and what he is showing us or asking of us. Our hearts get fashioned in the process, a process that goes on and on. No? Truly, a spirituality of the heart is a way of living and loving, a way of living and loving patterned on the way of Christ's living and loving. Remember, the Lord is not asking for a perfect heart, for perfect obedience, for perfect fidelity. He understands because he himself had a human heart. So I end the seminars in this note, no? And as we end these seminars, may this just be the beginning of our continuous living of our spirituality of the heart, of the four movements that Bishop Casquelli gave us as a concrete guide as to how our charism truly becomes a spirituality until it becomes interiorized and habitual. And remember, it does not end with ourselves. It ends with us going out of ourselves to reach out to others in our mission of love. And I'd like to invite you now for 2 minutes of silence, no? Just to listen to what is happening in your heart, no? Listen to whatever is in your mind. My presentation ends here. So please, 2 minutes of silence as we hear again what we have heard. I began with Bishop Caskelli, and by the design of the Spirit, I also ended with Bishop Caskelli with his reading of that triple question of Jesus to Peter, do you love me? So let's have 2 minutes of silence. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I think with this, I pass it on to Kathy to end these 4 sessions of ours on the movements of the heart.
Melly, wow. On behalf of the COVID team, Alison, and the participants, I extend our sincere gratitude to you for guiding us through the 4 inspiring sessions on the 4 movements of the heart. Through these sessions, we were invited to recognize our deepest human needs of life, love, and meaning, to discover their fulfillment in the heart of Christ, where God's love meets human longing, to grow into compassionate and understanding persons for others, and to deepen our trust in God's faithful love amidst life's challenges. Your wisdom, reflection, and accompaniment have helped us to journey more deeply into the spirituality of the heart and to appreciate how God's transforming love shapes our lives and mission. Thank you for your dedication, patience, and generous sharing. May the heart of Jesus continue to bless and inspire you in your ministry. Thank you, Melly. with our love and gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, everyone. And pass it on, no? Pass on whatever we learned. Thank you.